So Aimee is a rare personality in the MBTI community, and I say that because for a solid portion of her YouTube existence, she had typed herself INTJ, only to find out after some hardcore self-discovery and personal deep dives that she's actually ESFP. And you know what? Hey, happens to the best of us.
Yes.
Just some of the functions are just in the wrong order, but you discovered that, so it's like
Yeah.
you are now a certified ESFP. Um, and her YouTube channel has been a great follow for me after I discovered her recently. I think I saw her on Rational Typology, and then the YouTube algorithm gods just made like every single day I log in, like her videos would be there. So I was like, all right, I guess I got to have her on the show. So Aimee, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Now, ESFPs, as we know, are not well represented in the type community. You've had like the recent explosive success of Dear Kristen has like helped people see one ESFP, but as we
Right.
know, there's a spectrum of type, and like there's a broad spectrum within the types. So it's good to have you kind of be on here to maybe dispel some of the ESFP memes and things that are like exist on the internet. So first, I'd like to kind of get your opinion on like what are some of the bad stereotypes, and then what are you doing to dispel the ESFP stereotypes?
Well, I think that the most common bad stereotype is that we're like these party people. Like that's
Hmm.
it. Like we never got it together. We're always just out and about. Like, we can never commit to anything. We don't know what we're doing. It's a like sloppy ESFP, I guess. And then there's also like the entertainer stereotype is not a bad stereotype necessarily. But I do think that there are a lot more ESFPs out there that are not necessarily like the entertainer. So they'll be like, no, I'm definitely not an ESFP. I'm an INTJ or whatever. It's like, yeah, I hope that with my channel, I can show that ESFPs do have like an intellectual side. It's just that while anybody can do anything, ESFPs have a particular way of doing it that is quite different from any other type.
Yeah, and really, I'm glad you said the intellectual side because you're truly a student of MBTI. I saw your review of energies and patterns and psychological type, which is not for babies. Like that is a freaking tough book. And that's like when I always describe it, it's like MBTI PhD level. Like you're not going to enter there. You're not even like, even if you learn the cognitive functions, you're still not there yet. So you're definitely like, you break that. Not, oh, they're not intellectual, but that's a pretty freaking intellectual endeavor to read his book.
Yeah, I would say that the good thing about ESFPs is that because we're sensing dominant, like we will gather any information. Like that's one thing about me is that like I will gather all sorts of like data and just sensory information. So I've watched like probably every single MBTI YouTuber, and like there's never enough that it's just like discovering so much. And it's to the point where, like you said, like I started to read the books even. And then I'm like, it got to a point where I just had so much information in my head that I was finally like, okay, I can type myself. And I'm definitely not an INTJ. Yeah. So yeah, I
Okay.
think that's why we can, or I can appear like intellectual, in the sense that I can gather a lot of data and I like pretty much know all the references.
Yeah. So there is
Yeah.
that, even though inferior NI is there, it still wants to gather as much knowledge to get the data points to make a
Right.
decision on something. And that's really cool. Okay. Um,
Yeah.
and so I want to know, in the professional ESFP world, what does the day-to-day look like? If I was like a fly on the wall watching you operate, what does it look like? How do you organize things? Is it like, is your desk a mess? Like, how is everything really in their place? Like, I can see from your background that I see here, like everything seems like it's got its place, like a very, I don't know if you're like really good at interior design or decorating, but tell me what I would see if I'm like a fly on the wall.
You know, interestingly, I this question kind of gave me anxiety because I was like, because it really did, because I was kind of like day to day. Well, that would imply that I have to look into the past and see what I do on my day to day, and then like if I don't talk about it, I look like stupid, and then I don't even know what I'm doing day to day either. So I just look completely like chaotic and unplanned. So that question kind of gave me like anxiety, low key. But I would say that the day to day life, honestly, is it just has like a sprinkle of chaos to it. That's really it. But what we're prioritizing on a day to day basis is just the enjoyment of it? Like, do we really enjoy what we're doing right now? And that's like our top priority. So of course the professional ESFP will go into work like everybody else does, of course, but it's the way we do it that's just a little bit different. So, you know, we get up in the morning and we kind of probably take advantage of the snooze button a little bit too much, more so than most people. And then finally we're like, okay, we have to get ready. And then like we start rushing to get ready. And then we're like, oh, hey, we have time for coffee. And then we like, you know, like enjoy our breakfast. And then we're like, oh crap, we got to go. And then we like, you know, drive to work, blast the music, we're like singing in the car, and we go to work like every other person, every other type. It's just the way we go about it is just like probably slightly disorganized than most people. And yeah, as a conclusion, this question was really hard to answer because I realized that I don't even have a day-to-day or like like I found myself like, well, what do people do besides that?
Oh yeah, some are very structured. So I was wondering if like you like seize the day, like you wake up just like singing out of bed, but it sounds like you really like embracing your sleep rather than like getting up early and just, you know,
I prioritize myself.
Right.
Yeah. It's like I prioritize what feels good to me. So if I don't feel like getting up right away and, you know, like being like, oh, I have to eat breakfast by this time, then I just won't do it, kind of a thing. I'll just kind of, like seize whatever I feel like doing. And I think the ESFP, eventually in their life, in their profession, they're going to end up doing something that will allow them that kind of freedom. So I do think that like the 9 to 5 thing, not everybody, but I don't think it necessarily works for the ESFP. They will always prioritize a way that they can not do that.
Okay. Do you think that happens because it's accelerated by knowing their type? Or do you think that no matter if they don't know their ESFP, they will eventually come to that conclusion?
I think it's an eventual thing. You see, because even when I thought I was an INTJ, right, I did slightly realize that I was a little bit more like chaotic than the normal INTJ. Like I was never planned. And I just thought like, well, you know, like that's just a stereotype with INTJs, right? Like, and so I kind of just dismissed it. But then I realized like, no, even if I was mistyped as an INTJ, I would have done something ESFP like breaking away from that like structure and not planning and, you know, telling myself I'm not a stereotypical INTJ. It's regardless of type, I think that we'll find our place.
Yeah. And I had heard about this. I think you may have told me about it, but this whole idea of like we're in the same quadra of functions.
Yeah.
So that made sense. I'm pretty sure it was you that was telling me that. That was like, well, we just have, like I said, the same cognitive functions, different orders. So those 4 types will automatically find their place eventually and break out of the 9 to 5 if they can.
Yep, exactly. I think that ESFP just have more of a compared to possibly the INTJ. I think that maybe the ESFP is a little bit more spontaneous in doing so. Like out of nowhere, we'll just be like, nope, it's done. Nope, like I can't do it anymore.
I quit.
Whereas I think INTJs are a little bit more strategic about it.
Yeah. Okay. Just a little bit. Like I'm not. I don't. All the INTJs that I know are not rigid planners.
Really? Okay.
I think the ISTJ is much more a rigid planner, but
True.
There's a lot of spontaneity there, I think, in my life too. So advice for a younger ESFP, just come out of college, they like get typed, even though it's kind of, you know, when you're that young to get typed, it may or may not be legit, but what kind of advice would you impart to a young ESFP as they go through life?
I would say keep doing you and that you're not running behind. That's something that I wish somebody told me when I was like younger. I think that ESFPs will hear in their lifetime, especially around that age, they'll be like, well, what are you going to do with that degree though? Or like, what are you planning to do? You know, and it's like those kinds of things really give us anxiety, especially when we do look around at our, friends, our peers, and they're doing really great things with their career. They seem to have it all figured out. They got like married and, you know, all this. And, the ESFP may feel like they're a little bit behind in that sense. But I would say the more you stay true to yourself, the more authentic you are,
Mhm.
the opportunities will almost just come. And then your
Yep.
skill is actually that you're really good at seizing it. That I wish I could
Absolutely.
go back in time and like reassure myself. Yeah. Yeah.
That kind of reminds me of something in a weird NI way, that one of your videos was about fake influencers, which I really enjoyed. And
Yeah.
like, let me tell you why all this is BS and stuff like that. And I found that really, really helpful. And there's one influencer that's kind of in that realm. I don't know if you ever listen to Alex Becker, but he kind of talked about something
I know
like,
him.
you know him? Okay. He
Yeah.
talks about exactly what you talk about, where it's you you can't get back time, but you can always make more money. So like it
Right.
may take like a longer gestation period for the ESFP to figure out themselves while everyone else is getting a job and like advancing the career. But then like the exponential growth when the ESFP figures out themselves is going to be like, you know, instead of growing like, oh, I gotta, if you're talking about business, like, oh, I made 1% more every year. Well, the ESFP, once they figure themselves out, is like 20x,
Boom.
50x.
Yep.
So it's like,
Yep.
let's not get worked up about, if I'm not, you know, a senior vice president by 29, or I don't have like a thriving business, that I should feel down on myself. I think that can apply to most types, but I think maybe your type is especially needs that advice.
Yeah. Yep. Definitely. I think being an SE Dom, it's literally exactly what you said. It's when that moment comes, will really move the conversation. I think that's what extroverted sensing is. It's your ability to create an impact and really move that conversation. So when it clicks, you know, I mean, like Dear Kristen, for example, like it's like, you know, once you find it, it'll just take off. And I think that's the power with SE. But it's just to get there, it can give us anxiety, especially when there's like a lot of, eventually you'll get that peer pressure.
Yeah, a lot of the like
Yeah.
maybe SI types that are more like I said, maybe rigid or just more planned. They'll be like, oh, poor Aimee, she's just really
Yeah.
struggling.
Yeah, exactly. Totally true. Totally true. Yeah, I spent like most of my 20s like moving all over the country, made really bad choices and all this. And, you know, on the outside, it looks like, oh God, like, when is she ever going to get it together? But to me, it's really that I need to experience it. Like I'm prioritizing that experiencing part. Yeah.
Yeah. And eventually, so that's just great. So when you're like 60 years old as a SE Dom and you've known that for a long time, you probably will not seem like that entertainer type as much. You've experienced so much, so you'll have a little bit more wisdom there,
Right.
which will be very
Absolutely.
interesting. Like if you're picking your type all-star team, you know, so you have you and you have 3 other MBTI types working together on any project, any endeavor, any venture together. You have you with 3 other types. Who do you choose? And then give me the reasoning behind that.
Okay. Well, first off, I would say INTJ. And it's because I think you need somebody on the team that is just really good at long-term vision. I think that's a really rare skill to have, actually. A lot of people say they have it, but they don't actually have it. So I think INTJ would be a good one. And then I know a lot of people give this type crap, but I would say the ESTJ. I want an ESTJ on the team because they are the people that will actually execute. And there's like this perfectionist quality to them that I think is highly overlooked. In anything that you're doing, you need that person to be like, hey, remember, we're off schedule. Hello, like we got to verify this, right?
Okay.
So I would definitely say ESTJ. I thought ENTJ too, but then I was like, do I really need 2 NI people? Probably not. So I was like, okay, probably ESTJ. And then as a little soft spot, I would say like ISFJ. You need that like FE person there to make sure that everybody's happy, everybody's working together.
Yeah.
And they also have that sense of reliability and stability that the other that the ESTJ does too.
Okay. So there's a lot of interesting things to break down here that I have questions about. So you have 3 like if you're just going by type, the 4-letter codes, you have 3 J's and 1 P. And you have 2 TJs. So INTJ, ESTJ, and then you have and then temperament's another thing to consider. You're very J heavy. So there's no thought about like a INFP, like a just throw it in there, just mix things up? Or tell me why you didn't go with an NF, you don't have any NF types.
I never even thought of it that way, actually. I would say that for the P types, like, I don't want another P types because I know how I can get.
Okay.
I know how I can get when it comes to like kind of changing my mind and like not following through. I know how I can get. And if anything, what I want is somebody to set me straight and be like, no, you're going off track again. You know, so I feel like I don't need another P type. And then in terms of FI, I think that I think we're okay with one FI type, which is me.
It's just you.
And I think that in a business or like a group setting, I do think that the TEFE people, in my opinion, are a little bit better at like the managerial aspect because they're validating like the tribe aspect. What are people's thoughts and what are people's feelings? So that's why I value the extroverted judging types.
Okay. And then you only had one N with the INTJ.
Yeah. That's why I was like struggling between like INTJ and ENTJ, like can I have them both? But then I was like, I think with NI, if you have two NI people, their visions are going to conflict. And they'll be really stubborn about it. Yeah, because it's subjective. It is their own interpretation of what's going to happen. It's their own foresight. So if you put like an ENTJ and an INTJ together, I do think that they will have separate visions. They can. They can. Yeah, but I just want one. I just want one vision. Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many ways to go about it. That's why I think this question needs to be a staple, because it's like it's interesting to hear. You're probably no, you are the only person that did not choose ENTJ as a guaranteed must, which is kind of funny.
Well, I'm biased because my husband's an ISFJ, and to be honest, like until I met him, I did not know how important SI was in somebody's life. You know, I know everybody gives like the ESTJ that stereotype of like being by the rules and like, you know, like, but it's like, no, you need that person in your life to ground the team and be like, no, you guys are going off track. Look at this. Yeah. You know? And I do actually value that.
So what do you think about the direction of the MBTI community? Like in a positive sense, like what are you looking forward to in the type community?
I think I'm looking forward to open-mindedness. I think I hope we're past the stereotypical community where we kind of judge each other for our mistypes too much. And we're always just like calling each other out and making videos about why this person is not that type because they don't fit into this like stereotype or whatever. I think we're kind of past that. And I hope that we can be in a direction where we're a little bit more open-minded, that we all present in a different way. I guess more practical, I guess. So as opposed to it just being like, you know, like just straight philosophy or just something to discuss, you know, how can we use it? How can we use it? How is it applicable? And I think the newer generation does tend to provide that.
You've said it better than I can say it. Like it's always been a and so what? And I think there's a lot of, you're doing it. I think Alexis Kingsley's doing it well, like very prescriptive. How are we going to do it? Like, here's how you can do it in a way that's helpful. She has one video on like organizing her day. You have stuff on like, here's how the real business, here's how you should really do a business and forget about the influencers, like providing actionable data out there for people. And I know that you do coaching as well, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Not coaching, but like typing sessions. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How's that going?
It's going really well, actually. I love the conversations that I have with people. I like that there are people from like all over the world. I'll be typing people in like Egypt and I'm like, what? You know, like it's amazing. But it's interesting that no matter where you are in the world, we're all trying to do the same thing, which is to find ourselves. It's really interesting. I don't care where you're from. You could be from like Russia and you'd be saying the same thing.
Yes.
Yeah, it's so cool.
Yeah, we just have to get that universal language out there about type. Like I love when people start saying like, they just start using the cognitive functions as like a verb, like, oh, I'm TEing right now. Like once you get to that level in conversation, like that's where I want to get.
Yeah. Yep.
It's a little education of people and just putting the right content out there. So making it like, even though some people might go, oh, like all that skit stuff on the internet, like that's kind of basic, but like we need that. We want come into the big tent.
Yep. No, absolutely. There's a whole like TikTok crowd that is really about that. They like the skits and stuff, but then they come over to my channel and they're like, oh, so there's such these cognitive functions. What is that? Like that's nice. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's when that whole world opens up, that whole like John Beebe world where it's like, wow, there's so much more to type. Like it's going to take me years to just like implement it in my life. But that's why I always go like, no, this other model you're using is like so superficial. Like come to MBTI and you'll see like how much more there is to learn.
Right. Absolutely.
Cool. Well, Aimee, this has been really fun. Thanks for coming on the show. I really appreciate what you do. I have a number of your videos on my watch later list and I will comment and watch them. So thanks so much. I'm going to put where people can find you, your typing session, your channel in the description. So appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
I tried to live without you. Just can't get you.